You wake up early. You journal. You meditate. You read 10 pages of Atomic Habits, drink a green smoothie, and hit a cold plunge. And somehow, you still feel empty. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most self-help isn't helping you. It's not that it's fake, it's that it's endless. You were promised transformation. What you got was a treadmill. The more you optimize, the more you realize. There's always another version of you to build, another flaw to fix, another tool to try. You get a brief high when you adopt something new, a habit tracker, a morning routine, a new planner. But after the novelty fades, the emptiness returns. You start asking questions you were never supposed to ask. Why am I still anxious? Why do I feel worse now that I've improved? Why does the next level feel just as hollow as the last? But what if the whole model is broken? What if peace isn't found in becoming more, but in needing less? That's the Stoic cure. Not another habit, not another book, but rather a whole different way to live. The trap of endless optimization. Self-improvement feels empowering at first. You build new habits, optimize your day, track your wins. It's progress until it's not. Because self-help never ends. Every time you get better, you just raise the standard. The new version of you becomes the new minimum. And suddenly, nothing is ever good enough. You wake up early, but it's not early enough. You read, but it's not deep enough. You meditate, but your mind still wanders. You're constantly in beta, always testing, tinkering, upgrading, but never arriving. Even success starts to feel hollow. You crushed your goals, but instead of relief, you feel pressure to go again. Bigger, faster, sharper. Why isn't it ever enough? Maybe because it was never about the goal. Maybe it was about the feeling of chasing something, anything, so you didn't have to sit with yourself. You're not building a life. You're maintaining a performance. And it's exhausting. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The cult of becoming. Here's the deeper problem. We've made life into one big self-upgrade project. You're always trying to become more productive, more confident, more disciplined, more likable, more optimized. But when are you allowed to just be? When was the last time you did something not for growth, not for content, not for validation, just because it was true and human and good? When every day is a stepping stone to a better version of you, today becomes irrelevant. The present becomes a problem to fix, not a moment to live. This mindset fractures your sense of self. You don't know who you are, only who you're trying to become. But the Stoics didn't obsess over the future self. They focused on present character. They didn't ask, what am I becoming? They asked, how am I living right now? Marcus Aurelius didn't write about his 5-year plan. He wrote about getting out of bed in the morning when life felt pointless. He wrote about reminding himself to act with dignity, even in small things. He said, concentrate every minute like a Roman, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. You don't need to design your ideal self. You need to show up honestly in this moment. The illusion of control. Self-help sells a fantasy that if you just follow the right system, read the right book, run the right routine, you can control everything. Your outcomes, your emotions, your relationships, even your fate. And that illusion works until life hits you with something you didn't plan for. A breakup, an illness, a betrayal, a layoff, a death. Suddenly the apps and planners and mantras don't help. You did everything right, and it still went wrong. What do you do when the formula doesn't work? That's when you realize control was never the point. Character was. That's where Stoicism begins. With surrender, not passivity, but acceptance. Epictetus said, some things are up to us and some things are not. Most people live their whole lives trying to control the uncontrollable and blaming themselves when they fail. Stoicism teaches you to narrow your focus, not to shrink your life, but to reclaim your power. You can't force outcomes, but you can choose your character. You can always control your response. That's not defeat, that's real strength. The perfectionism problem. There's a dark side to self-help no one talks about. The belief that you're never enough. Just be 1% better every day. Sounds harmless, right? But what it implies is brutal. You should always be improving, always pushing, always correcting, always measuring. There's no room to fail, no room to rest, no room to simply be human. You go from tracking steps and sleep to tracking self-worth. That's not discipline. That's anxiety in disguise. The Stoics didn't demand perfection. They demanded honesty, integrity, effort. You could fail 10 times a day and still be making progress if you were learning how to live with more courage and less fear. The Stoic journal wasn't a highlight reel, it was a mirror. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "What did I do wrong today? Where did I act without reason, without kindness, without control?" He wasn't trying to win, he was trying to grow. Seneca wrote, "You are your own judge. Prize yourself. Approve yourself." Improvement isn't about being better than others, it's about being braver with yourself. The comparison loop. Even when you're not trying to impress others, you still notice them. Their wins, their glow-ups, their perfect routines. You compare, silently, constantly, and when self-help becomes a scoreboard, you always lose. There's always someone more disciplined, more shredded, more zen, more successful. You start to wonder, am I behind? Am I not doing enough? The Stoics called this a sickness of the soul, measuring your worth by anything outside your control. Marcus Aurelius didn't care about status, he cared about alignment. He wrote to himself, not to an audience, not to be admired, to stay awake to the life he was already living. Ambition, he said, means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. Comparison poisons the soul, but presence cleanses it. Stoicism says you don't need to be ahead, you need to be here. The Stoic Reset. The Stoic path is brutally simple. Focus only on what you can control. Let go of everything you can't. Practice virtue in action, not in theory. Stop chasing better. Start acting better. This isn't a new system, it's the opposite. It's a subtraction of noise. No aesthetics, no hacks, no secret formulas. Just a return to what matters. Character, clarity, courage, self-respect. There's a power in simplicity because it forces you to decide what really matters. Who you want to be when no one is watching. What you'll stand for when no one agrees. That's why Stoicism has lasted 2,000 years. Not because it helps you crush your to-do list, but because it teaches you how to suffer without losing your soul. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." You want to feel better? Don't reach for more tools. Reach for deeper truths, the kind that anchor you when everything else falls apart. That's the Stoic Reset. The hangover ends here. Self-help said, fix yourself. Stoicism says, face yourself. Self-help said, become something. Stoicism says, be someone. You don't need to be a genius or a winner or an optimized machine. You need to be honest, present, brave, and kind. Not tomorrow, today. Seneca said, begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. You have everything you need right now to live with meaning. You don't need to wait for a new system, a better version, or permission from the world. You just need to act. The point of Stoicism isn't to impress people. It's to liberate you from needing to. You're allowed to be ordinary, to fail, to be forgotten, and still live with incredible purpose. Because the only person you ever really have to answer to is you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and comment below what self-help promise burned you out the most.